Driving alone on a desolate stretch of highway, I was accustomed to the solitude that came with my job as a delivery driver. The remote roads were familiar territory. Yet, on this night, an unsettling chill permeated the air as I navigated the empty road. A flicker of movement caught my eye. I glanced over and saw a woman seated in the passenger seat of a car speeding beside me. Her hair was styled in a tight twisted bun reminiscent of Miss Trunchbull from the movie, but it was her terrified expression that froze me. Her wide, fearful eyes locked onto mine, as if she had just seen a ghost. Before I could process the sight, her car veered off sharply at the next exit, leaving me stunned and uneasy. Trying to dismiss the eerie encounter, I pressed on, my nerves tingling with unease. About a few minutes later, a second car pulled up next to mine. To my horror, the same woman was in the passenger seat, her hair still styled identically and her face still twisted in terror. The déjà vu of seeing her again was unsettling. I felt a gnawing dread as I decided to stop at the next tourist area to report the sightings, but as I pulled in, the car vanished into the night, leaving me frustrated and perplexed. I was determined to get to the bottom of this mystery, so I continued driving as my senses were heightened. Hours later, as I neared London, the unthinkable happened again. The same car appeared alongside me, and this time, the woman's expression was even more desperate. Her mouth moved in silent pleas, her eyes pleading for help. A shiver ran down my spine, the fear in her face palpable. Acting on instinct, I pulled into a nearby lay-by and dialed emergency services as my heart was pounding. The dispatcher informed me that other drivers had reported similar sightings, which brought me some relief. As I waited in the darkness, the oppressive silence was occasionally broken by the distant hum of passing vehicles. The anxiety was almost unbearable, the tension hanging thick in the air. When the police finally arrived, I relayed every detail of the encounters, but despite their thorough search, there was no trace of the car or the woman. Haunted by the memory of her terrified face, I drove home with a heavy heart, plagued by the thought that I had glimpsed something beyond ordinary comprehension. In the days that followed, I sourced new reports, desperate for any mention of the bizarre occurrences, but found nothing. It was as if the incidents had been erased from reality, leaving me to question my sanity. Yet, deep down, I knew something sinister had occurred that night. I had encountered something that defied explanation, something that seemed to dwell in the shadows of the unknown. The image of the haunted woman remained etched in my mind, a chilling reminder of the supernatural encounter that had shaken my understanding of reality. From that moment on, I avoided driving alone on lonely highways, always wary of the possibility of crossing paths with the enigmatic figure. The fear and the mystery of that night lingered, a constant reminder of the dark, unseen forces that lurked just beyond the veil of the ordinary. I was home alone for the week while my family was away on vacation. That night, around 2 a.m., I decided to push my limits by watching a horror movie in the pitch-dark basement, aiming to terrify myself while still feeling safe in my own home. The suspense was palpable as I settled in, the eerie glow of the TV casting long, flickering shadows. Suddenly, the basement door rattled with pounding footsteps from above. My heart raced. This was no ordinary noise. My family's comings and goings usually made the house creak and groan, but this was different. I switched off the TV, plunging the room into darkness, with only the faintest glow of the TV's after image illuminating my surroundings. I crouched behind the large screen, straining to hear over my pounding heartbeat. The basement door creaked open, and I heard footsteps descending the stairs, slow, deliberate, and menacing. My breath hitched as I tried to remain perfectly still. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours, and the silence was suffocating. The oppressive quiet seemed almost deliberate, as if the intruder was hiding, listening for any sound I might make. I fought to maintain my composure, my fear slowly morphing into confusion. If someone were really here, why wasn't there any sound? The basement was so silent. It was as though even the walls were holding their breath. I began to wonder if I had imagined the entire thing. Perhaps the intruder had already gone, or maybe they had never been there at all. Desperate to break the silence, I counted seconds in my head, the only noise my saliva dripping onto the carpet. as the count reached 60 seconds, then 30 times 60. I realized I had been hiding in darkness for nearly 2 hours. The fear that once gripped me had turned into a puzzling uncertainty. Realizing I couldn't stay hidden forever, I decided to risk making a move. The growing stench in the basement was unbearable. An overpowering foul odor that seemed to indicate something decayed nearby. The thought of a rotting corpse in the darkness fueled my panic as I crept toward the stairs, hoping to evade whatever or whoever was waiting. Just as I reached the stairs, a deafening crash erupted from behind me. Like something heavy had fallen or collapsed. Driven by sheer terror, I bolted up the stairs, burst through the basement door, and out into the open air. I sprinted to a safe distance and called the police, my hands trembling. When the officers arrived and conducted their search, they soon returned with grim news. An elderly neighbor had been found dead in the house. They believed he had suffered a heart attack, and in his final moments, must have stumbled into my house, searching for help. Guilt overwhelmed me. I had been so close, while he died just feet away. But then, I recalled the loud noise that had spurred me to flee. I questioned the police about it, and the response was chilling. They discovered the back door of my house was ajar, and found a single bare footprint in the mud outside. Someone else had been in the basement with me, silent and waiting, lurking in the shadows beside the dead man. The realization that a mysterious presence had been hiding in the dark, watching and listening while I cowered in fear, left me with a profound sense of dread. The enigma of who or what had been there, and their motives would haunt me forever. As a new nurse at an old, creaky hospital, I was still getting used to its eerie atmosphere. The dimly lit corridors and groaning floodboards made every shift feel unsettling, but I was determined to prove myself, even as my unease grew. One particularly haunting night, I was assigned to care for Mr. Thompson, an elderly man suffering from pneumonia. When I entered his room, I found him staring wide-eyed at a corner, his face a mask of terror. "Mr. Thompson, is everything okay?" I asked, trying to mask my own creeping fear. He turned to me, his voice quivering. "There is a girl in the corner. She's been watching me for hours." I glanced at the corner but saw only shadows dancing in the flickering light. "There is no one there," I said, attempting to reassure him. "It must be your imagination, sir." He shook his head vehemently. "No, she's real. She's been haunting me since I got here." Despite my best efforts to calm him, Mr. Thompson's anxiety was palpable. Throughout the night, he kept glancing nervously at the corner, mumbling about the ghostly girl. As the hours ticked by, an unsettling feeling began to creep over me. It was as if an unseen presence was lingering in the room, watching us. I caught fleeting glimpses of movement, but each time I turned to look, there was nothing there. When the clock struck midnight, I went to check on Mr. Thompson again. To my horror, he was gone. Panic surged through me as I frantically searched the room. Just then, a chilling breeze swept through the space, raising the hairs on the back of my neck. I turned towards the corner, and there she was, the ghostly girl that Mr. Thompson had described. Her form was pale and translucent, her hollow eyes locked into mine with an intensity that chilled me to my core. I was rooted to the spot, torn between a deep-seated fear and a gnawing sense of duty. "What do you want?" I managed to whisper as my voice was trembling. The ghostly girl tilted her head as if pondering her response. Her voice, like a cold whisper from beyond the grave, filled the room. "I am trapped here, cursed to wander these halls for eternity. But you can help me." Her words sent an icy shiver through me. I said, "How can I help you?" As I was barely able to keep my voice steady, she extended a spectral hand, pointing towards the hospital's abandoned wing, a place infamous for being haunted by relentless spirits. "Find the locket. It holds the key to my freedom. Find it and set me free." Her plea was laced with a desperation that compelled me to act. I ventured into the abandoned wing, the air heavy with dust and the stench of decay. Shadows seemed to whisper secrets from the darkness, and every creak of the floorboards made my skin crawl. I navigated through the maze of forgotten relics and old medical equipment until I reached the attic. Amidst the clutter, I spotted a small, tarnished locket buried in the debris. My hands shook as I picked it up, feeling its cold weight. A sense of foreboding washed over me. I know opening it might unleash forces beyond my understanding, but I had made a promise. Taking a deep breath, I opened the locket. Inside was a faded photograph of a young girl, her face radiant with innocence and joy. Suddenly, Pearson's scream echoed through the attic, sending me sprawling backward. I looked up to see the ghostly girl before me, her form flickering in and out of existence. "You've done it," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the tumult, saying, "You've set me free." As she spoke, a blinding light enveloped the attic, filling the space with an otherworldly glow. With a final wisp of smoke, she vanished, leaving only a profound silence in her wake. I stood alone in the attic, the weight of what had just occurred settling over me. Amidst the fear and uncertainty, a sense of peace emerged. I had helped tormented soul find redemption, and in the process discovered an inner strength I never knew I possessed.